Shalom, and here's a thought for the week. Beginning this Shabbat, it's the 17th of Tammuz, and it's a period of 3 weeks, which historically in the Jewish tradition has been weeks of mourning. Although we don't mourn on Shabbat, but normally the first of those 3 weeks is the day, the 17th of Tammuz, when the tablets were broken by Moses, and Jerusalem's walls were breached with the destruction of the temple. And the last of those 3 weeks, 21 days later, is Tisha B'Av, when the first and second temple were destroyed, and many other calamities to the Jewish people. On the one hand, it seems like a sad period when we don't have weddings. Jewish weddings are not held at this time, and several other mourning traditions are implemented. At the same time, many years later, recent history, 1927, on this month of Tammuz, is when Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, who was arrested for his underground activity in Russia, having Jewish schools, mikvahs, ritual slaughterers, and all the different Jewish life within communist Russia, he was imprisoned. He was sentenced to death, and then he was released from prison, sent to exile, and finally released in the month of Tammuz on the 12th and 13th of Tammuz that we celebrated this week. So then the month of Tammuz got the name, the month of the redemption. So on the one hand, it's the month that contains the beginning of the 3 weeks. It's called Between the Constraints, the time of the destruction of the temple. And at the same time, in modern history, became the month of the redemption of the Geula. How do we synthesize the two ideas together? So the truth be told, while the previous Rebbe was standing by the train station, heading to exile for teaching Torah in communist Russia, there was a group of Chassidim standing there. And he told them as follows. He said, remember that only our bodies can be put into exile. The anti-Semites could inflict pain on the Jewish body, and they can, in our history, they put us ghettos, and they've done a lot of other things to the Jewish people, but they can never imprison our souls. Our souls are always free to follow God's commandments. And that's why the previous Rebbe, even in jail in Russia, demanded that he be able to put on tefillin. And he went on a fast. He wouldn't eat. Finally, when they let him out of prison, and they told him, you could leave Russia, he said, I want to take my books with me. And they said, no, we don't want these precious manuscripts. We want you to keep them here. And he said, and he threatened them. He was in, at that time, Leningrad. He said, if you don't let my books out, I'm not leaving. And they called up Moscow. And they said, Rabbi Schneerson is threatening not to leave if they won't let us take his books out. And he was so strong about it that from Moscow, top people in the communist regime said, whatever Rabbi Schneerson wants to take with him, you stamp with approval that he can cross the border with it. So not only did he leave, not only did the same people that arrested him, did the same regime that put him and hundreds and thousands of millions of people, put them to death and put the previous Rebbe in jail, not only did they allow him to leave, but they themselves helped him leave. They escorted him out of the country. So much so that later on he was escorted by an SS officer out. What is the lesson in life? Sometimes, if we recognize how strong our soul is, that's part of God inside of us, not only will we be proud Jews, but we'll be so strong that all the things in life that seem to disturb us, all the things in life, and today it's mainly the things that disturb us are not things outside of us, it's mainly internal struggles from the evil inclination or from thinking maybe someone will make fun of me if I'm more observant, if I put tefillin on, Shabbat candles, the mikvah, or keep kosher, or start wearing a yarmulke, right? But to overcome those struggles in the time of freedom, not only will all of these real or imaginary adversaries not stop us to live a life of a proud Jew and bring the redemption to the world, but they will actually help us we will find that the world is really helping us be observant of of Yiddishkeit. And that the Rebbe tells us that we're standing at the brink of redemption for the Mashiach to come. And all we need to do is one more good deed, as Maimonides says, and it weighs the scale for good. Not only will the world not stop us, but the whole world will help the Jewish people realize the purpose of creation for peace for all of mankind and all of the world with the coming of Mashiach. And may these days of the 3 weeks coming up, as the prophet says, they will be transformed to days of joy and Yom Tif and holidays with the coming of Mashiach now. Amen. Have a wonderful Shabbos.